Today, in many places of the country, what was once a pandemic, limited to certain areas of the eastern part of the U.S., has now become a countrywide issue. Reports of individuals are coming from everywhere. A grocery store in Virginia was evacuated when an infected individual was seen in a clothing area of the store. Police and first responders arrived and were unable to subdue the woman. After she attacked a paramedic, the officers engaged in a scuffle that resulted in multiple injuries. The officer shot the woman multiple times and was reported dead at the scene. We do have an eyewitness report from the scene that explains what happened.
Yeah, we heard there was an infected woman near the changing areas. She was rabid and swinging at anyone who came near. But I guess she had attacked someone out of one of the booths. The cops came in and they had a fight going, and when the person bit one of the medics, a fight broke out and they shot her. I guess the sick lady died, and there was another dead lady in the changing area, but we didn't see them.
What did the infectious person look like?
Oh my God, she was so gross. She was pale and looked almost like she had statue skin. It looked like granite, and she moved like she was made of stone. She lumbered and growled. Even with the stone, she looked greasy, and her face was covered in blood. She had scratches and cuts all over her. Her clothes were all torn up. It was horrifying, just like a movie. She never spoke the whole time and wouldn't listen to anything anyone was saying, which was what we were told to look out for. And I gotta say, it was definitely easy to tell she was sick. It was very evident.
Thank you for that report. We're hearing similar reports from all over the nation and potentially the world. Someone in London reported that a crowd was required to hold down a sick person after they attacked multiple individuals on the subway system. The police did take the individual away, but it was questioned what happened to them afterwards. In another report from France, one mortuary insisted that multiple individuals, potentially mistaken for dead, were in fact victims of the illness and attacked staff. What does this mean for those of you out there? Many professionals are saying that vigilance is more important than ever, that anyone could be infected. But to not fear those around you, especially those who are sick from other illnesses. That it's important to stay clear of what you believe or understand as being a person infected with the illness. The Senate is calling for National Guard forces to be brought in to support local political buildings to make sure that government process is protected and infrastructure is maintained. Meanwhile, CDC, Surgeon General, as well as Civil Defense are calling for full quarantines. This is a contrast to prior reports that the illness was under control. Hospitals have already started to complain that they cannot maintain current numbers as staff continue to decrease in ever-increasing numbers. Some staff simply refuse to go to work, and this could have advanced to police and firefighters who believe their states and principalities have not taken the necessary steps to protect them. Concerns of proper staffing in many areas is coming into question. At the same time, shelter systems that were activated in multiple states by civil defense groups still remain mostly unused, while they are questioned for their trust and efficacy. This has brought fears to the safety of maintaining residents in packed cities that, even though they are staffed correctly, are reporting much more sick than any other places, and reports of police simply shooting infected individuals. Pushback from politicians and activists, at this point, are now falling on deaf ears. The first concern that many in public positions are continuing power, phones, and hopefully internet. They say the possibility increase of contacts are associated with individuals who believe an impending quarantine will happen and are acquiring water, bread, and canned foods in case water supplies become contaminated. We called local health officials and asked what to look out for with clean water, and they said that right now you shouldn't be concerned. But if your water is questionable, to simply boil it, which should make it properly drinkable. It's surreal to think we're moving forward with considering actually boiling water, which is interesting, but the truth is, this is real. Before it was simply being careful, and now it's a serious situation that we all need to be aware of. As a reminder, this all started not long ago with the question of a pathogen that had moved through parts of Pennsylvania and expanded into the slums, and we believe made significant moves throughout the homeless and drug-using population. At the same time, a similar event was happening in Georgia that spurred a move by the governor that locked down the capital and questions of breakouts in the northern part of the state. As things moved along, we heard of incidents in North Carolina, but they had been stopped and questions of uncontrolled infection in the countryside of Pennsylvania were ruled out. What was later reported was the situation in North Carolina was worse than we surmised. This moved to what was called a cleanup of buildings in New York, while Philadelphia had problems of sick in the streets and forcing National Guard forces to come in to attempt to rescue anyone that was reported to be stuck with power outages and loss of communication. But still, they were able to get information out and requested help. It's unclear, but last we were told, people were moving back into the city and Pittsburgh was functioning. Remember that some of this information is simply incorrect or not thorough enough to properly report. It became very difficult to keep up with social media that was filing with gruesome images of catastrophic injuries and reports of attacks and questions if the news system in place could even properly report the issues, and those of us in the news were not arguing. It's become so difficult to follow what's happening that many of those in the news just started reporting anything they had access to, verified or not. What is clear is the Civil Defense, in cooperation with CDC, were doing their best early on to confirm outbreaks, but they've since given up on the pursuit. They quickly outlawed researching the illness as being too dangerous, and although the move was criticized, it received the support of federal and local officials. The pursuit right now is to discover the cause of the illness, but also to work on a vaccine or a cure. But even then, questions of how that happens when no one can work on things legally has been criticized as well. With lack of support, 911 being down in some areas or being overloaded in others with requests to confirm the ill, which has been questioned as a potential mass hysteria that could not be minimized. The local population has begun to take their own action. This has resulted in militias being used by local sheriff, and especially in southern and middle states, unchecked individuals armed with personal and varied weaponry starting to take matters into their own hands with questionable results. This has led to mixed responses from across the country. It's clear that each area has specific needs and reactions that have driven different results. We see in city areas a reliance on city officials, while in rural areas it's a mix of waiting for assistance and taking individual action, as is expected. What's wholly unclear is, are those the correct actions in any case? What we don't know is how close we are, or if it's even possible, as some professionals surmise, that a vaccine is even applicable to the illness. Originally, it was assumed that contact with a pathogen was what was making people sick, such as sharing bodily fluids or drug use, or some surmised eating foods such as those tainted with a prion disease of some sort. But other reports have stated they have seen those that are considered immune compromised, that they could be more susceptible to the illness. This has led to questions of an airborne or insect spread, something similar to the Black Death. What is evident is that this illness is nothing like any plague we've seen before, viral or bacterial. An illness that drives its host mad and takes away their very humanity. It's completely devoid of any humanity and have led some theologians to call it the end of days. As they combat it with prayer circles, it seems even the most secular proponents of religion are saying they'll take anything at this point. It's true. Between frustration and exacerbation, many would prefer just to be pinched and awoken from this nightmare. A response from government officials of any kind from any country is long overdue at this point. Some instructions on what to do, but it's made us think. Maybe they simply don't know. The president left the campaign trail to return to the White House to begin taking action, but still, they remain silent. The only press release simply said, "We're working on a process of mitigation and instruction that will protect American lives." End quote. but we've yet to hear what those things are. Scientists have been clear that if something isn't done soon, we will reach a tipping point, a path of inevitability to which no manner of action from any sources will prevent this from being a global catastrophe. We're going to keep our eye on this problem and stay with you as the situation unfolds.